Good. Okay. Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for rejoining us as we proceed on this section. Like I said before the break, this session we will be having Radwa Eltanab, who will be speaking to us on early intervention and care giving. But before we proceed, this section will include a featured presentation and followed by 3 questions from the audience, which we will pose one after another. And then we'll have a very short transition before the next session. We kindly ask everyone to please remain respectful in the chat. This space centers families, lived experience, and constructive dialogue. So to proceed, we are pleased to welcome Radwa Eltanab, BCBA and founder of Simplify Center for Behavioral Services. Radwa's work focuses on early intervention and caregiver empowerment, grounded in the belief that families are not passive recipients of care, but essential partners in the intervention process. She bridges clinical expertise with daily family realities, emphasizing approaches that are practical, sustainable, and culturally responsive. Her work highlights how early intervention becomes more effective when caregivers are equipped with knowledge, confidence, and the support they need. Hardware challenges professionals to move beyond rigid models and to truly listen to families. She emphasizes that programs disconnected from family realities risk being ineffective, regardless of their technical quality. This session highlights what becomes possible when professionals and caregivers work together in partnership, built on respect, shared goals, and trust. It is my pleasure to hand over the mic to Tanab. Tanab, the mic is yours.
Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you so much for inviting me to this great conference. It's an honor to be with all of you and all of these amazing people from Africa, and I'm so happy to be with you today.
And we're happy to have you.
Thank you. I'll share my screen.
Go ahead.
Yeah, can you see my slides? Perfect. Yeah. Today, I want to talk to you about early intervention, and also about parent training. And usually, it's very important to know what is the research is saying about this. So for today's presentation, I would like to talk to you about what the research is saying globally, and then I'm narrowing it a little bit to Africa, what the research in Africa is saying, and then we will talk together about what happened in Egypt regarding research, and then I want to talk about me a little bit, because when I'm talking to you about me, I'm talking also to you about a parent to a kid with autism. And he's 23 years old, and we went through a lot of things together regarding early intervention and parent training before I became a BCB. So it's very important also to talk about a little bit about my experience with my son, because it's apart from today's talk. So I'm starting like broader when we talk about global research. So why early start or early support? It's very important. So first of all, let's talk about what's autism. Especially I'm talking about what's autism and how it's diagnosed for those parents who are new to autism. So they need to know, like, autism, it's not like we know it by a blood test or by a specific scans or some stuff like that. Autism, we observe it. We check our children's behavior and development. That's why it's very important to know what we are looking for. For example, we have problems with communication. right? So when we look at autism, we look at there's deficits in communication skills and also deficits in social interaction. So when we see our children, they don't know how to socialize, they don't know how to like make communication together because social skills depend on communication. And also when we see our children when they are playing, so they are playing differently. It's not like what we typically see in other children. And also we see in our children repetitive behaviors and restricted interest. So it's very important when observe our children, we have to look at these things. Like we said, it's not about blood tests. There is no test that we can go to the lab and check if our son has autism or not. It's based on our observation as a clinician and as parents. So what early signs do parents often notice? Parents needs to check two things. They have to check things regarding to social communication, and also they have to check things regarding stereotype behaviors. For example, when we see our children have very limited eye contact, and this is also, I saw it in my son when he was young, like poor eye contact, interested in only toys, interested in like items, not interested in looking at mama's face or dad's face. Also, like difficulty sharing attention and interest. Even when he's picking a toy when he was young, he's not taking this toy and come to me and share it with me, like as if he's telling me, Mom, look at my toy. Mom, what do you think about that? No, he just taking it and have it in his hand and just playing with it, his way, of course. And also fewer gestures or like very like facial expressions, very few. For example, like when kids, they know how to point to items when they want to share attention with their parents. So they point to the airplane, they point to the tree, they point to the cat. All right. So when our kids didn't point by the age of 8 months, that seems to have a problem here. Like kids when they want their moms to carry them up, so they do some gestures like putting their hands up together like that so mom can carry them. So when we see our kids don't do that, so this means that there is a problem, we need to look at it. Challenges with back and forth conversation and play. Yes, so when mom wants to play with her like kid, and then they want like do tickles and they want to wait for a specific interaction from the kid as if he wants more, so mom didn't see that, mom didn't want something like that. So the kid on his own maybe looking at the sky, maybe looking at something different, but is not making like an eye contact and share interest with mom. Even with the kids when they are speaking, some of the kids when they are speaking, we see many of the kids speaking on their own. It's not functional, it's not sharing a conversation with parents, so they may repetitively repeat some words. And also difficulty building relationships. We can see some children in school, all right, they can go to school, they can academically do very well, but they don't have friends. They have difficulty making friends and they have difficulty maintaining relationship with others. This is regarding this social communication and language. The other part the parents needs to look at when they have like a child, okay, especially in the early ages, repetitive behaviors and restricted interest. For example, when we see repeating movement or speech, like if you see for clinician, when they see like children with autism, they might repeat the same words over and over. They might engage in vocal stimming and vocal stereotypy, and they also engage in hands flapping. When we see like children like make a hand flapping or finger flickering in front of their eyes, or moving their arms, or walking like going in lines back and forth, and moving their heads right and left. All these things are repetitive movement that maybe it could be an indication for something we need to ask and investigate more about. When we see children engage in very strong routines or distress with change, for example, they want to have like a specific route when the car, they want to go this way. If the car go another way, so they may scream, they may cry, they make problem behaviors. When they, for example, they can also show some distress and a little bit of changing when they expose to them different types of food, different types of clothes. Also, when you see them very focused in their interest, for example, you will see them watching the same YouTube video over and over and over and over. You will see them watching or talking even about the same topics over and over and over. There's no a variety of changing topics. There is no a variety. There is no a variety of changing subjects that they are talking about. Unusual reactions to sounds and textures and lights and smells. Like, for example, we sometimes see this a lot of times, like when mom take her child and then go to like a shopping mall or go to the supermarket, you find the child maybe is very irritated because of the loud voices around him, because of a lot of stimulation around him, either like an auditory stimulation or visual stimulation, or or a strong smell that they can smell it and they cannot tolerate it, and this affects their behaviors as well. So when you all these see these things, the repetitive behaviors and restricted interest in the social communication, which is based on the DSM-5, this is our manual that we all rely on for, like clinicians rely on for diagnosis. That's where there might be a problem. So when do these signs appear? Usually, like these signs of autism or these features, it usually appears in the early childhood, all right? And it's very like noticeable to the parents, right? Because even when the child's getting a little bit like older and older, a little bit, even by months, you will see things, it's getting growing, like features and stuff like that, getting more and more features of autism, especially when the child is in an environment have some demands. Okay, when we asking the child, like for example, like get your clothes or put on your shoes, or like how like let's clean up toys or how stuff like that. When we see things like that, we might see that the child is not following instructions. Maybe the child is not understanding what we're saying, or like what's the problem? Why is not like throwing this paper in the bin? What's wrong with that? Why when I'm calling his name and saying like his name is not responding to me? All these things, it's an alarming things that we need to do more investigation about it. So, and all these markers that we talked about, it's very cited in all the autism research. So why do families face like this delay in diagnosis? Like the parents now, they are seeing some features, they are seeing some things in the early ages, and then what's next? So the parents, they want to know what they're going to do. Yeah, does my child has a diagnosis or anything? What do I need to do next? All right. So based on all the research and all these things, the parents wants to like, if my child has autism, I need to have a formal diagnosis, right? Because having a formal diagnosis will help parents get the best services that they can, all right? And also they want to see a specialist. So seeing a specialist, they want to talk to the specialist, they need to know what they're going to do. Okay, also like starting early intervention program. So even if we get the parents get a diagnosis for their child, and then now what? Are we going to wait like years to have early intervention, or are we going when we're going to have our programs? This will take a lot of time, sometimes take a lot of time for parents to get a proper programming for their children. So why this delay? What's happening here? There's many factors here that is affecting it. For example, some children, when they are like in their early years, especially when they are very young, sometimes the clinician, it's so, I don't want to say so difficult, but they don't want to rush by giving a child an autism diagnosis, because of course having a diagnosis with autism, it has its own like things that we have taken care of it. So sometimes the clinician wants to observe more and more and more to see if this symptoms is gonna escalated, if these symptoms, if this is like maybe like a little bit delay in language, but maybe when he's like becoming 1.5 year or 2 years, he's going to be talking more and more. But usually it's not only about the speech or it's not only about the language. There are other things like we mentioned before. It's related to a diagnosis of autism. So doctors and clinicians, they don't want to rush. All right. Yeah, it's like we said, it sometimes is good, and sometimes it's not good. Sometimes it's good because they don't want to give a label to the child, and sometimes it's not good because if we wait and wait and wait, all right, this is not good for a child. Needs programming and needs to have like an intervention. So like the advice when they are saying like let's wait and see what's going on. So but waiting for how long? This is time, and this is yani, very important things for our children that we have to take care of time. All right. And also like maybe the parents will go and like they want to go to the specialist and the clinician, but they're having a waiting long uh, line to have a diagnosis or to see a clinician to check. So the long line, all right. And also the limited trained professional, especially in our countries, especially in our countries when we're talking about like Africa and countries in Africa, we have limited trained professionals. We have few, like our countries, like with millions of the people, all right, and we have autism, but these millions of people, we don't have like a lot of clinician, a lot of trained people who can train the parents to work with their children. So we are very low in resources, right? And all of these barriers that we're talking about, it's in the research, even in the global research or the African research or the research in Egypt, right? So because this is very critical, children when they are like up to 2 years old, of course, all the children will learn, even if they are like 10 years, 11 years, and 12 years, of course, they are learning. But when we're talking about when children, they are very, very young and their brain is developing, at that point in time, they need a lot of information. They need a lot of things to be trained upon so they can develop more faster. That's why we're talking about early intervention. It's extremely, very, very important in the early ages for children in order to teach them skills, in order if they can catch up, they can do better, and they can have a better life ahead. So why do researchers focus on parents? So there's definitely a lot of things because of that. Parents spend most of their like time when they get their babies with them, most of their time, the interaction, the parenting, they staying with them at home, all of this time. So the early part in the children's life, it's extremely important. So and the parents spending time with them until they were able to go to nursery or go to preschool, and then after that parents can check their like lives, about work, about career, about stuff like that. So this like period of time, it's very crucial. That's why it's very important to focus our training with parents so they can work with the children about a lot of things, the routine, the everyday routine about this. So that's why it's very important to teach strategies and techniques to parents so they can work with the children in this early ages of life. Earlier studies also showed that starting intervention in like in early toddlerhood, it also improves the communication and engagement. And there's many research about that globally that's proving that when we start early with the children, their engagement and the communication skills is getting better and better. So like when we're talking about like globally and this like randomized clinical trials from many studies all over like years and years ago. So when they work with the children like up to 24 months on many things, we will see what the parents say. They work with the children on their playtime. They teach them how to play because children with autism, they have difficulty also playing with the toys. I remember my son when he was like 1.5 year. he was like, instead of putting the blocks on top of each other and making a tower, I remember that he was putting them in lines. He's putting them in lines. I remember at certain point in time, he was throwing toys also. This is one of the most important skills that we need to work with our children, play, because when they are young, their work is play, you know, and also like about feeding, right? So like feeding manners when they are eating, when they are like using the plates and the spoons, and how can they requesting, and how can they requesting to eat, like meal times, like everyday routine, dressing, how can we help them, like choosing what to wear, all of these things. And we can work on these skills when the children are very young, like everyday interaction, everyday routine in the child's life from morning till night. It could be an opportunity for the parents to teach their children. The most important thing is like knowing what we're going to do with our children. This will help a lot. So from all these studies that we're talking about for the early interventions and all these like clinical trials, what improved? Children whose parents were trained very well, they often showed a better social communication with their children. They are able to communicate well with them. They found that increased engagement during play. They found that the children are much more interested to play with their parents compared to when they started. They found like stronger parent-child interaction. The interaction was high. Before that, there was no interaction. Before that, they were like they have very fixated interest in things. But with the training parents, things are getting better and better, and they found that their children getting much more engaged with them. So, and also, what happens to the parents when they see that their children gets better? They became more responsive to their child. So, you know, like we say it in ABA, it's something like reinforcing. When I work with my child, or when I interact with my child, and I see my child is happy and interacting with me more, what will happen after that? It will encourage me more to play with my child more and more, to teach him more skills, because I see it's very reinforcing to me. It's very rewarding to me as a parent to see my child gaining more language, wants to interact with me, wants to go outside with me, wants to play with me. It's very reinforcing. So it makes me, I want to do this more and more with my child. So use strategies more consistently. It means that when I do things with my child, it helps me being more consistent in applying the strategies that I learned from the professionals. When professionals taught to me some strategies and I apply it with my children, I will be more likely to apply it more and more with the same fidelity, with the same like quality of intervention. Created more learning opportunities throughout the day. So like I always thinking, so is it only about like 1 hour or 2 hours working with my children and teach them some stuff? No, it's not like that. It's like a lifestyle. So in the morning, when I'm preparing breakfast for my child, I can let him come with me and prepare breakfast with me. I can let him, of course, it's based on his age and the skills, but I can let him engage with me the things that I'm doing, like getting dressed, playing together, preparing meals, putting laundry together, like talking together and interacting. All these things will encourage me as a parent to capture every opportunity to play with my child and teach him new skills. So I will move now to what the research in say in Africa about the parent training and early intervention. So let's talk about when I was like doing some research, I found like a very nice like a study done in Zambia about something called naturalistic environmental teaching. It's called NET. It's one of the teaching strategies in applied behavior analysis science. The very good thing about this, or the very like motivating things about this intervention, is they are using it with like young children, very young children, and with infants and toddlers, because it's based on motivation, and it based on the child's motivation. When the child wants something, was approaching something, So like I run before him and like capture these things and try to interact with the child, try to say the name of the item in front of the child, and then like making the connection with them. And then if the child is showing any interest about this item, like by pointing, by looking, by any gestures, by saying, by any vocal words, I immediately hand it to the child and we can talk about it over and over and over. So it depends on the motivation of the child, and it's very natural. So if the child is interested about colors, if interested about painting, and interested about toys, so we take these items and create many opportunities, natural opportunities, and teach the child. So the child's building. So we build the communication between us, a parent and the child. So parents in this study were taught to model language. Like, for example, if the child's interested in the bubbles, so they taught the parents to say bubbles in front of the child. Say what the child wants to say. So we want the child to say bubbles, so we will say bubbles. We want the child to say car, we're going to say car. All right. So they taught the parents in the study to prompt communication to help them learn how to communicate by providing the models, by providing the gestures, by providing opportunities for them to communicate. Also, they taught the parents how to encourage the interaction during play and routine. So after they did that, what did they figure out? What changed after the program for caregivers? So they now they know a lot of helpful strategies that they can do it throughout the day, felt more confident in supporting their children. Now they are so confident about what I'm going to do tomorrow. I learned today what I'm going to do with my child. So tomorrow I learned, so I'm going to apply it tomorrow. So what did they notice for the children after they implementing this program? They showed improved language. When the child didn't say bubbles before, now he's saying bubbles. If the child was saying bubbles, all right, and then I taught him more language or like a long sentence, he can say now blow bubbles, right? A child with a 2 years old can say a phrase with a two word, like a verb noun, right? He can say blow bubbles. So they saw an improved in language. Also, they saw an increase in pretend play. Also like a 2 years old or a 2.5 years old, like maybe like up to 4 years old, they can do a pretend play. They can get like a tea, a tea set, the cup and the spoon, then the pot, and they can make like a tea party, and then they can do like as if they're having uh, people and friends and children and kids around, and they are handing them tea and making a tea party and other types of pretend play, like for kids, for children like very young, they can do like a Superman and Spider-Man pretend play. They found that the children becomes more socially engaged with their parents. They want to play with them more and more, and they want to give them like an opportunity to interact together. Also, there was like another research there was done about also like providing an early autism model programs to, they were testing it. How about we can provide like an autism model to the parents? Okay, how can we do that? They were testing. What's the possibility of having these models? How can we make it reach to the families faster? All right. How can these programs can work in like a community with a very few specialists? Okay, we can develop a program, but how these programs can reach to the people there? What is the possibility of these programs that we can develop in groups? We can teach people, all right, and then after we teach people, these people they can take the training over to other people, because of many reasons that make it difficult to work directly with the children, you know. So although some of all of these trials are still ongoing, they are testing, they are doing like these studies, but the most important like thing that we have to consider is that the parents is the active partner in our child development, is the main giver. Okay, it's not only the clinician. With the clinician, also the parents. The parents is very important for the parents to like be a big part of the child's lives and teach the child so many things. So there are some reviews in autism about autism in Africa. So like when we look at it all, we're gonna see that they are all like agree about there are long delays in diagnosis, okay, and also there are limited access to therapy, all right, and also the high stress for families. And like my friend Dr. Sylvie, she did a great presentation yesterday about the stress that families facing because of all the things that they are going through, even before the diagnosis, like uh, until they can reach to a stable like programming, until they can see like their kids progressing and all of these things. So all of these things, they agree about having the delay in diagnosis and the limited access to therapy and the stress for the parents and also the shortages of a very well-trained professionals. Okay. And like when we're talking about also shortage of trained professionals, يعني I think also this is in يعني we can see it sometimes in Egypt and I think also we are like there are people that they are saying that yes we can work with children with autism, we can do this, but they don't have enough education, they don't have, they are very professional in what they are doing, they are not very well experienced, they did not study well so they can train the parents. So also we have to be very careful about the people who, when they are saying that, oh, we can help children with autism, but they didn't have that much experience, they don't receive the better education. So how come they can train the parent? We need the people who train the parent, that people are very like know what they are doing. You know, they have the education, they have the experience, they make progress with other children. This is something very, very important. Parents have to look at it. So the papers, all these papers that we're talking about, is strongly asking and demanding for earlier identification of autism, all right? Because the earlier the better, like we know, and also low-cost community-based program, like for community that also other colleagues, they are talked yesterday about the financial things and how important it is like to train the parents because of the financial burden, because you know our children, they need a lot of things. I know that also there are parents who are trying the biomedical approach, and they are doing a lot of things for their parents, and medication and therapy and a lot of things. So this is an extremely burden for most of the parents. So so the parent training as a central solution. So parent training, definitely when the parents get trained very, very well, definitely they will be able to work with their children, and also they will help with the financial burden because of the therapy, because of the all other things that we know about it. So till now, the global research and African research, now they agree about the need for parent training. They agree about the delay in diagnosis. They agree about the limited resources that we are founding in our communities, right? So let's see what's happening in Egypt. Um, Definitely, we in Egypt here have like difficulties about a lot of things, all right? So there is one thing that done from the health, the Ministry of the Health, is that they are collaborated with the WHO to provide like the caregivers with a specific program. So the World Health Organization caregiver skills training. So they train some people, so they can train the parents. All right. So this is something good, but it needs to be like more and more and more. You know, here like in Egypt, we are like a lot of populations, a lot of kids with autism. We have also a lot of people that they cannot afford to pay for services. So this is something needs like the attention from the government, definitely. So so the programs teaches parents how to support and teach communication during play. And this program by the WHO, like build learning into daily routines, like we talked about it before. They taught the parents how they can teach their children during the everyday routine, and also they taught them how to handle problem behaviors. All right, but of course these things, it wasn't like they didn't take children and to work with them directly. All right, no, they taught them how to do this verbally. Okay, and we all know that definitely this is not enough. There must be hands-on training, you know. And also they taught them how to build a good relationship and building rapport uh, between the parents and the child, so they have a good relationship together. So when the child have a good relationship with the parents, they will be willing to learn from the parents more and more. You know, this is something very important, because if the child feels that the parents is nervous, or the parents she's like rushing and things, they're putting a lot of demands on them. Our kids, they cannot tolerate that. Our kids, they feel it, because many of our kids also, they engage in like demand avoidance. When you put on them a lot of demands, they engage in avoidance. They engage in something called escape behaviors. They don't want to do stuff. They don't want to do that. They like to be in their comfort zone, you know. So this is something very important for parents. That's why when we provide training, it's very important to provide a proper training that tackles all of these areas. So the Egypt-based research highlights, like we talked about in Africa also, the limited services, okay, in Egypt, also the long wait for families, and also the importance of like making like a scaling between how to do like parent coaching programs. All right, we can provide the parents with programs and they can work with the children. There's also another like study in Alexandria. Alexandria is another city in Egypt. It's one of the biggest city also in Egypt after Cairo. Cairo is the capital. So this study that was done regarding parent training also, they provided some program. The program, it included a psychoeducation about autism and behavior. They teach parents, and also they give them parent training and how to interact with their children and some behavior strategies. And also they give them like cognitive behavior therapy, like a CBT uh, for the parents and for some children. So they all delivered in group sessions tailored to caregivers. So they give them this tools so they can take it to their children, you know. So after the parents received this training, all right, families reported that their children showed like fewer behavior problems. The behavior problems is decreased if the child is engaging in aggressive behaviors or self-injurious behaviors, or like non-compliance and tantruming and throwing themselves on the floors. They found that becomes less. And also they found that their children becomes better in daily functioning skills. If they were refusing to brush their teeth, now they were able to brush their teeth. If they're refusing to get dressed and undressed, now they are better in getting dressed and undressed. And also the family reported that the parents themselves, it helps with reducing the stress and anxiety that they were facing together. You know, I want also to say something about stress and anxiety for the parents. Definitely, there's a lot of things that parents can do for themselves and to help themselves. And like my friend were saying yesterday about the ACT therapy and stuff like that, it was an amazing presentations and advices to the parents. Also, when parents see progress in their children's, the stress will reduce, you know, because a very big part of our stress is like seeing our children engage in problem behaviors, seeing our children that when we teach them a specific way, they are not learning this way. So we have to figure out what's the better way to teach our children. When they learn this and they get the skill, our stress will be minimized, our anxiety will be minimized. So that's why I am highlighting the importance of parent training, because this will help the parent also in any other aspects in their lives as well. They will become more confident, right? So before, parents cannot take the child going outside. Parents cannot go to birthday party. Parents cannot engage making their child do some when they go some training, playing swimming lessons or going gymnastics. Okay, no, they cannot take their children before and making stuff like that. But now, and after working and after the child's gaining some skills, they were able to take their children outside. They were able to take their children to training and expose them to the community, right? And families reported that now they can understand better about autism. They know much more about autism. Before, it wasn't, okay? But of course, I want also to highlight something. This is just like for a very, very small, people or like a caregivers in Egypt, Cairo, and Alexandria. But there's also a lot of people and a lot of parents here in our country. They need to learn more about autism. They need to know that not every single behavior we need to eliminate for our children. It's not like that. We are teaching our children to live an independent life as much as they can, if they can. We are teaching our children adaptive skills. We are teaching our children better communication and language, but to the maximum that they can reach. We are teaching, but we're not targeting to eliminate every single behaviors in life. So this is something very important because there's a lot of things that parents don't understand about it when they're saying my child is laughing without no reason. Why? I need to stop that behaviors. My child is moving his hands a little bit and fingers in front of it. I want to eliminate that behaviors. No, it's not like that. As long as the child is doing what he is asking to do from him, for example, in nursery, in preschool, in therapy, at home. But when we have his own time and he's doing in his own time behaviors that feels good for him without hurting himself, without hurting other people, so let it be. He's releasing stress. He's enjoying what he's doing without hurting anyone else. So we have to really consider that. We have to really consider that he's a human being. He has his preferences. He has his own needs. Before I summarize things, I just want to I just want to tell people who don't know me. I want to know who am I. I want to talk a little bit about my son, and then I will summarize all. I summarize it all together, right? Um, my son Omar, he is diagnosed with autism when he was 2 years old. This is Omar, if you can see him. This is Omar having his own textbook. We started teaching him using sign language back then. And then after that, we moved to the picture exchange communication system because he was nonverbal. And then I learned about ABA and I learned about a lot of things so I can teach my son. So I focused on the early intervention. I was giving my son 8 hours daily of therapy when we started here in Egypt when he was 2 years old. And then I traveled and learned a lot of things in Florida, in USA, when he was 4 years old. And I give him also more intensive therapy. I started the intensive therapy when he's 1.5 years old, maybe until he was 8 or 9 years old. I continued giving intensive therapy at home, in the centers, in the community. So I worked with him so much so because he was nonverbal, he has a speech apraxia, he was engaging in stereotype behaviors, minor behavior problems, not major problems. So that's why I'm highlighting the parent training, I'm highlighting the early intervention. And then after that, I started to study to help my son. I was thinking about how about to study more so I can help him more based on education. Yes, I see in Egypt they are teaching him. When I travel to the USA, I see the programs, but I wanted to learn more about the education part. So I registered in the Florida Institute of Technology and I took my courses. I'm sorry about that. And then I took my courses. I'm gonna go over it briefly because of our time. And I became a BCABA, Board Certified Assistant Behavior Analyst. I was the first certified in Egypt by that time in February 2016. And after that, I decided to go for the master's degree. I studied applied behavior analysis on the master's level from the Sage College in New York. And then I completed my BCBA exam and became board certified behavior analyst in 2019. And that's where we are celebrating. And then when they started doing Dr. Michael Muller and doing the IBA organization, I'm representing Egypt. I'm in the professional advisory board that's representing Egypt. I'm also the Egyptian ambassador for the World Behavior Analysis Day organization. And finally, in 2021, I decided to open my own center, which is called Simplify for Behavior Services. I just wanted to give you a brief who am I and what did I do with my son. And now my son is 23 years old. And by the way, I want to tell you something. My son himself is spreading awareness and acceptance on autism with his sister. They make like a TikTok page, and his sister, she's spreading awareness, and they are doing a lot of nice things together. And they became viral in Egypt, and they won the TikTok award, the Golden Award, with MENA in the Middle East this last month. So my son himself is spreading awareness about autism and speech apraxia, and he's going online to tell people that there are people who are different than us, and please, and we have the rights to be engaged in the community and to be inclusive in the community. I just don't want to make it long for you. And these are some pictures of the activities that my son is doing. He's a swimmer, by the way, and he's a championship swimmer. That's about like my son. And just to finalize our presentation, all these research globally and in Africa and in Egypt, they all agree about something, that there are signs that we will see in very, very early ages. And starting early, it's very important to support our children. And training the parents is very crucial to our children development. And this is not only in globally or in Europe or Africa. No, it's across different cultures and across all globally. It's everywhere, And definitely when parents learn how to deal with their children, this will reduce their stress and improve the child's life to a better life. So the final takeoff for the parents, please, please, please don't wait. If there's a long lines for diagnosis, okay, don't wait for a diagnosis. Look at what is, I don't want to say missing, but look what your child needs and start working on it right now. Try to look for a professional. Try to learn from people who are experienced and well educated, so you won't be lost in autism without having help. So research from all over the world, and like we said, Africa, Egypt, okay, the parent-mediated strategies improve communication, and we have to use everyday routine to help our children. And also the caregiver confidence will grow. We can go outside with our children everywhere and anywhere, all right? And children can go to school, right? And they can have a better life. All right? So parents, you are the one that is the most and important person in your child's life. Go ahead and help your child. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Indeed, they can have a better life. They can have a better life. Most of the things you said that got me is we use everyday routine to help our children. Use everyday routine, and don't wait for diagnosis. Don't wait for the long queue of diagnosis. Look at what is missing, or look at what your child needs. I want to thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. But before we let you go, we have 3 questions from our audience.
Sure.
The first one is coming from Huda. Huda says, why is caregiver involvement critical in early intervention outcomes? Why is caregiver involvement critical in early intervention outcomes?
Okay. let me talk about, like, for example, two types of caregivers. Let's first talk about mom. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. So I'm a mom, and God gave me a child with autism, right? And he's my son. And of course, we all moms love our sons, definitely. And we want to help them very, very much. And this is something we cannot change. It's like God chose me to be a mom to a child with autism. So what should I do? Shall I shall I ignore my child? Shall I give them to any, like, people there? They can teach them. They can do whatever they want without me involving in. My child does not have a voice. Okay, when he was still does not learn how to like interact, how to say what hurts him, how to communicate his needs. My child, even if he can go to school, even if he can go to therapy, there are other times that he can come back home. What do I need to do at home? Shall I leave him in front of the TV all the time? Shall I leave him to, like, breaking toys? Or I need to teach myself skills from the professionals so I will be able to teach my son, right? Because, like, this is something important. So my child will know what to do when he come back from school. He knows what to do when he comes back from therapy. So he's organized at home. He can go take shower by himself. He can go fix a meal by himself. He can get dressed and undressed. He can, if he has leisure time, he knows what to do with his leisure time. Our kids doesn't know how to do this by themselves. We have to teach them. So if a mom cannot learn this, how can my child do this at home? You know? So this is for as a mom. Other caregivers, for example, like siblings, and if we're saying siblings and dad and grandparents, okay, this is also very important because our kids, they have difficulty generalizing what they are learning. Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe he can come to me, communicate with mom, but he cannot go communicate with his sister. He cannot go communicate with the brother, with dad. He will leave all these people. He will ignore all these peoples because these people, they didn't receive proper training to deal with their with his son, or with their brothers, right? So they need to receive a proper training. So my child can go to his dad and ask from his dad, can go to his siblings and ask from their siblings and communicate together, going outside together. So you need to know that our kids have problem with generalization. They cannot generalize what they're learning. That's why it's very important. When we talk about other caregivers, teachers, okay, if the kid is able to go to school and he has some challenges, he cannot learn in a very big environment. He cannot learn when the teacher say, like, call his name from a far distance. So this teacher, okay, since they accept to have the child in class, they need to learn how to deal with this child. Otherwise, why they are accepting? Yeah, otherwise, why they are accepting a child with difficulty in their class? If they are not able to help him, maybe the school or mom can think about having a support teacher. So this support teacher is a caregiver. So she needs to learn what to do with the child. Otherwise, the timing that he's spending in school is going to be nothing, right? I hope
So,
I answered your
of course,
question.
of course.
Yeah,
So, the
yeah.
the emphasis here is getting the education that we all need as caregivers to meet the need of the child. Basically, the next person is Emeka. Emeka says, "What happens when intervention programs ignore family realities?"
Yeah, that's a very important question. So I will tell you something, for example, that I do, okay? And this is something for all the parents. When I sit with the parents first time and I ask some questions, and then one of the things that I always ask the parents, okay, why you're coming to me? You know, what do you want us to work with your child on? What are the priorities? Okay. Yeah, we know that the child, for example, he's 4 or 5 years old and he's like still like needs to work on a lot of things, like very low profile, doesn't know how to communicate and stuff like that. But what are the parents' priorities? What do you want us to work on? So from here, we like the professional and the parents come along together and participating together in putting the best program for the child. So it's very important for the parents to have a say in what programs it's going to be added to our children, you know? So that's very important. So I would highly recommend, like, for the parents to be involved when putting programs for the children. Yeah, this is something very important.
Be involved. Being involved.
Yeah.
I don't think we can
Yes.
really overemphasize, how crucial it is to be involved in their affairs, to be involved in their
Yes.
learning and everything that has to do with them.
Also, like, when and with our children, when that we work on, when we do like an updating for the programs, I want to do some updates after like 2 months or 3 months or something. Like, I always call the parents. Now we're doing some updates. Is there something you want to add to these programs?
To this
Is
program.
there something that came up? Is there something that you're thinking about? Because the parents is like living with the child in the natural environment. So
Uh-huh.
maybe there is something that came up. They want us to taught this the child. The parents who are struggling for their kids to identify the days of the week, the calendars. They don't understand the timing. They want to go every day to grandma, and we go to grandma, example, like in the weekends. All right. So I need to teach this kid calendar. I need to teach this kid time.
Uh-huh.
Of course, I'm not talking about very early intervention. I'm talking about a little bit older children.
Yes.
But I'm just giving you an example of how involvement the parents should be when putting and updating the programs for the children.
For their children. And finally, our
Yeah.
last question is from Ayan. How can professionals build genuine, sustainable partnerships with caregivers?
Yeah. How, like, the professionals sustain
Yes. How
genuine
can professionals?
relationships?
Yes.
Yes, that's, yeah, with caregivers. Yeah, this is also a very nice question, and I like it. You know, when parents like comes to us, they are very frustrated. They are very like, for example, one parent, like, when getting the child from school, the teacher, they just told me that he hit one in the school today, and the parents coming very frustrated. So what do we, as a professional, our reaction to the parents when she's coming frustrated after she heard the teacher told her that your son hit another kid in school? Of course, we have to just like, it's okay. Just let me know what happens. And we take the parents slowly, and we listen to the parents, and we try to understand the situations, what happens exactly, what's the context of this problem. And and then we put our plans and our programs. What I'm trying to say from this is that the more we understand the parents and we acknowledge the parents' feelings, and we show compassionate, and we show with the parents that we understand their feelings and what happens, the more the relationship between the profession and the caregivers will become uh, better and better in their communication, because they will feel that we feel them.
Yeah.
We feel their struggles, we feel their everyday struggles. So we cannot blame the parents. We cannot say, because of you did that, because I taught you how to do toilet training, and at home you didn't do it well. No, it's not like that. It's about, did we train the parents well?
Mhm.
And also, if we want even to talk to the parents, we can ask the parents, did you have an opportunity to do it at home? Do you need an extra help at home? Do you need an extra help in school? So as long as the parents is asking for our help and our training, okay, we can make sure that they are receiving the best training so they can help their children.
It has been an amazing time having you here, share your
Thank you.
experience and share your wealth of knowledge with us. We don't take your time for granted. Thank you so much for coming on the program. We will now transition to the next speaker who would be talking to us about research under representation and data gaps. So thank you so much for being here, Tanab.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to being with all of you.
All
Yes,
right, I'll
thank
see
you.
you all
Thank you
soon.
for the effort and everything.
Thank you.
Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.